Hey everyone, I'm Dan Kaplan, Deputy Editor at SC Magazine. I'm here with Laura Mather, who is the founder of SilverTail Systems. Laura, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
I want to talk a little bit about what you guys do, and obviously your customers are, banks, e-commerce sites, people who are very big players on the web. We hear a lot about authentication and users and those sort of sites protecting themselves that way. You guys are specific to the back end, the fraud prevention type thing. Can you talk a little bit about that issue out there? Because there's a lot of it going on.
Yeah, absolutely. So what we've seen in the last few years is that the perpetrators have really changed the level of sophistication that they're attacking the websites with, whether it's the banks or e-commerce. And they used to just get a password through a phishing email and be able to do whatever they wanted. But the websites got smart and they put things in place that looked for geolocation, looked for machine ID. Unfortunately, the criminals didn't just go away. So now they are coming in through malware that sits on the consumer's machine. They're able to authenticate with second factor, and so websites now need to look a little more deep at how their users access the website in order to detect that it really is a perpetrator or it is legitimate.
Right. So back, a few years ago, the FFIUC said that banks, for example, had to institute multi-factor authentication. You have to have a password, and then maybe something else like a token, or something like that. And obviously, the thieves, like you just said, are they're going to get around that. They're not going to let that get in the way.
Yeah.
So, do you find that if you guys are, if technology is sitting on the back end and is sort of monitoring what they're doing and is flagging something as suspicious, that's a good way to halt a lot of this stuff going on?
It actually is, because most online websites right now are still using merely authentication. The criminals will go to the place that is easiest for them to target. They are a business, and so the best return on investment for them is the place where they can make money in the least amount of time and the simplest way. And so just by looking at behavior and identifying it is enough to make it difficult for the criminals, and they're happy to go find a place where it's not so difficult.
Of course, we have to mention Zeus, which is the most prolific bank. It specializes in stealing banking credentials, so that's out there. So a lot of banks, big and small, or their customers are being affected by this sort of thing. Do you guys are you getting a lot of interest in your particular technology because of this sort of malware that is sitting on machines and stealing bank credentials?
Absolutely. So in the case of Zeus, we often see what's called a man-in-the-browser attack, and that's where the criminal has malware on the victim's computer, and the malware is amazing. It waits until the victim has authenticated into the website, and it looks for the website saying, yes, you are now authenticated, and then the malware comes alive and interacts with the website itself. So this is super difficult to detect, and the websites in some cases are losing lots of money because of this. So we're definitely seeing much more interest lately in this type of detection, looking at the behavior of web sessions instead of just authentication.
So the burden really, for something like Zeus, the burden really lies. users should be trained not to click on this stuff, not to get this malware on their machine. If they do, they should have technology on their machine that can help get rid of it, or they should keep their machine fully patched, maybe to prevent some sort of vulnerability that the malware is taking advantage of. But there is burden on the other side of things, on the bank side too.
Yeah, it's really interesting where that's going to fall down. I think there's a lot of discussion in the industry right now of where the liability sits, right? Is it the antivirus vendors because they didn't detect the malware? Is it the consumers because they clicked the link where they didn't have antivirus software? Is it the banks? There's all sorts of lawsuits happening right now. I have a feeling we're going to see more legislation and regulation coming around this, and it's kind of up in the air.
Yeah, where the ISPs play.
Exactly. There's all these. It's really interesting to think about who has the ultimate responsibility.
Mm-hmm. But when we're talking about banks, certainly a vested interest because they're the ones who have to make up the losses.
They do in the case of consumers. Now, in the case of businesses, there is not the requirement that they pay back the loss. And And that is where most of the lawsuits are coming these days, is the business will sue the bank saying they should have taken steps to protect them.
Right, and that I'm glad you mentioned that, because that is, for the most part, the businesses. I mean, these are smaller businesses. These are the kind of folks who can't afford to take the kind of hits they're taking. I mean,
yes.
Churches, school districts.
Exactly.
And
small, and these are the businesses that keep this country going, and this is a big deal to them.
Yes.
So we need to make sure that they get
protected. A lot that needs to be worked out potentially in Congress regarding some of these things. I mean, we might see regulations.
I would not be surprised if we see something like that soon.
Okay, and then we talked a lot about banks, but to finish up, I mean, some of the the e-commerce media, are they experiencing sort of similar things as well?
Yeah, I think what's happening is a lot of the banks are getting smart and are putting protection mechanisms in place, which is awesome. And the criminals, unfortunately, are not deterred. They still want to make money, and what we are hearing is that e-commerce is getting impacted much more in 2009 than they were in 2008, and 2010 seems even worse.
Impacted how?
Criminals are doing things like gaming sweepstakes programs. They are using stolen credit cards to buy merchandise that can be easily fenced. They are using the e-commerce websites to validate stolen credit cards, even if they don't purchase anything. The criminals are very creative, so it makes my job somewhat fun, though I feel bad for the e-commerce companies.
Certainly, and you guys are in Palo Alto, home of Facebook headquarters. What about the social networking sites? Is there any? Certainly, they're a target as well. I mean, because a lot of those sites are kind of a little lax in some of their security efforts.
So the social network sites are interesting because, getting back to your liability question, they, in some ways, can enable some of this fraud. A lot of what we call the secret questions that banks and other institutions ask to authenticate you, that information is available on Facebook. And so I've seen certain anecdotes about how the perpetrators are scraping Facebook to get data so they can go successfully beat authentication challenges. And I think that's a big reason why the criminals are targeting things like Facebook and other social network sites so much.
Yeah.
Because it gives them the inside information they need.
Ton of information out there, both to defeat authentication and also maybe create their own social networking, or rather social engineering scams as well.
Yeah. Oh, exactly, right? How powerful is it to say, hey, I saw that your Aunt Betty is a big supporter of, the Breast Cancer Institute, and why don't you send me some money because I'm raising it for this cause? Holy cow.
Okay, Laura Mather, who is the founder of SilverTail Systems, and I should mention, Laura, you worked as director of fraud prevention at eBay for a number of years as well.
That's true.
So obviously you're taking a lot of expertise you learned there, and you're helping to build some technology here. So
that's my goal. I figure the more that we can make internet users safe, the better for everybody. So
absolutely.
That's absolutely my goal.
Great. Well, thanks for joining us today, and good luck with everything.
Awesome. Thank you very much.